start this off. How many of you, you don't have to raise your hands, have an unused streaming subscription? Don't poke your spouse. I told you to cancel that. Unused gym membership. The quickest way for me to work out at home is to get a gym membership. Every time I pass the gym, oh, it's going to be so awesome if I go home and do squats. Now, apps have annual membership. Anyone ever get an app? This app is going to fix everything in my life. And it's only $79 for the year. What does that work out to per month? That's pennies. And then a subscription goes 2 years unused. A few years ago, because I'm a nerd, my wife got me a gift to the 23andMe DNA thingy, where they tell you where you're from and all that kind of stuff. And I really thought, because I have a very Irish last name, nothing showed up in Ireland. So I don't know what to do with that. But there's these genetic traits that you have. And I walked in one day and I told my family, would you guys look at this? I have a genetic trait that almost every power athlete has. And for some reason, they were just looking at my body like this. Really, Dad? And I thought, ooh, maybe someday I can use this in a sermon. Because just because I had the trait and the potential, my life wasn't showing the fruit of there's a potential there, but you have to do something with it. Are you tracking with me? It also showed that I have more Neanderthal DNA than 88% of other 23andMe users. Please don't use that against me. Today, I'm nervous about that. I've never preached on this passage before, and this year we're taking our sermons from through the Bible reading plan. So this is from a text from this past week's reading plan, and it's the parable of the talents, parable of the minas. Jesus warns us against burying what we've been given. So, let's jump into Luke chapter 19, starting in verse 12. He said, "A man of noble birth went to a distant country to have himself appointed king and then to return. So he called 10 of his servants and gave them 10 minas." If you're an underliner, you can underline the minas part. "Put this money to work," he said, "until I come back." So, point number one. In this story that Jesus told, the king entrusts. That's what the king does. He entrusts servants and gives them talents or minas, depending on the translation that you're using. They'll use different words. In the ancient world, this was a big deal. It was about 3 months' wages. This is not pocket change. It's not a fortune either, but it's significant. You would notice it if you lost it. And it shows the significant trust the master was putting in his servants before he left. So a servant was entrusted with these wages that had implications for the family he served and also himself. Like there's multiple layers of trust going on, and there's a huge potential for the servant to show their support for the system that they live in. And Jesus is using this very concrete example to teach us how serious stewardship is. And it's whole life stewardship, not just with our resources, but with this whole life that we have. And in the early church, they're commentating on this passage, making comments about this passage. In the 4th century, John Chrysostom said and pointed out that 10 in this parable often signifies completeness, showing that this is a picture of all disciples, not just a select few. So if you're like me and you're usually looking for a side door around the hard stuff, sorry, there isn't one. By extension, Jesus isn't just talking to those people he was physically with, but this is for his followers even to today. I wonder if he had you and me in mind when he was telling the story. So the command is for everybody, and so good followers get the command from the master: put these resources to work. Put them out there. And every one of us has been given something. We've been given time. Though it doesn't feel like it, does it? I was talking to Ralph Taylor yesterday, and I forget how, but he just said, we always make time for what's important to us. Like, yeah, that's true. Isn't it funny? I don't have time, but I found time for this thing that I love. Every weekend at Vineyard Junior High School, we see hundreds and hundreds of people who are stressed out, who have multiple kids, who are living the Uber driver parent life from kids practice to kids practice to kids practice. And on top of that, they're volunteering to coach and referee soccer. If you go by Vineyard High School from 8 a.m. to noon this time of year, you'll see it's packed. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying, wow, these folks are making time for what's important. And they've been given this time and their kiddos, so they're volunteering out there. It's amazing. We've been given relationships. With relationships, they're very important resources that God has given us. We've all been given skills, some of us more than others. Some skills are more useful than others. I can do the robot, not very useful, but I do the robot for the Lord's glory. But you have other skills that you use out in the marketplace, spiritual gifts that you use. You've been given opportunities, where you were born, how you were born. Those are things God's given you. Are you using them for God's glory? Are you putting those resources to work for the Lord? Your mina matters because the King trusts you with it. Now, one of the reasons I've never preached on this passage is because after like the third or fourth time a big time speaker person in the church speaking circuit came to when you work at a big church, the guest speakers usually want us to talk to the whole staff, and they use this passage, and they use it like a hammer. And they say things, and it sounds really cool when you have an Australian accent too. It's not just about being faithful, it's about being fruitful. And so if you're the youth pastor, you're like, oh no, I need 500 kids here this Wednesday, or else they're gonna kick me out. The master wants his receipts. I want to be absolutely clear, as you look at my smiling, bearded face, this passage was never meant to be a hammer, okay? What you have, God has given to you, and it doesn't have to be this anxiety-inducing thing, even though the title of this says, and he wants his receipts. Our master is cheering for you, okay? So let's move on with this example. Then he sent for the servants to whom he had given the money in order to find out what he had gained from it. The first one came and said, "Sir, your mina has earned 10 more. Well done, my good servant," his master replied. "Because you have been trustworthy in a very small matter, take charge of 10 cities." The second man came and said, "Sir, your mina has earned 5 more. His master answered, "You take another 5 cities." Then another servant came and said, "Sir, here is your mina. I have kept it laid away in a piece of cloth. I was afraid of you because you are a hard man. You take out what you did not put in and reap what you did not sow." His master replied, "I will judge you by your own words, you wicked servant. You knew, did you, that I am a hard man, taking out what I did not put in and reaping what I did not sow? Why then didn't you put the money on deposit so when I came back I could have collected it with interest?" Number 2 is the servants respond. And we have 2 servants that took risks. They invested it. Then they saw increases with their investment, and one buries it out of fear. So the difference between these servants, which for us, good business-minded, Western-educated folks, we're thinking profit margins, right? That's the difference. One gained a lot, one gained nothing. There it is, you put it on a spreadsheet, and that's why the master's ticked. The difference isn't profit margins here. The difference is in trust. The difference is in courage. And the difference is obedience. The first two servants didn't have control of the outcome of their investment. The master said, put this money to work. And they made the best choice they could with the resources they had been given, and they put it out there. The difference was not profit margins. It was courage, trust, and obedience. Inaction is disobedience, okay? Fear, it's not this neutral thing. It's almost a waste of grace. We all feel the fear. We all want, I mean, it would be amazing if we could control outcomes of our life, right? It's what you do with it. Courage isn't the absence of fear. That's why we selected that word on purpose. We all have, what if people put this out there? And I'm not making fun of the new generation. It's like in the podcasts and stuff, I'm fascinated about learning. I'm fascinated by them. And we need to, as missionaries, learn as much as we can so we can share God's love with the up-and-coming generation. Can I get a good amen? So in my read on this free culture translator tool, I came across an article about the Gen Z stare that you see on Instagram or TikTok, if you have TikTok, or X. You can see a picture, and some Gen Z folks, their pose is like this. Nothing. And we don't really know why, but some of the experts are saying they've watched their older siblings, the millennials or their uncles and aunts, oversharing on social media. None of us have ever done that. They've watched their grandparents post things that weren't true, and they've fallen for the AI thing again, or they've been hacked again. And the reaction in this third generation of people who've grown up with social media is not to be cringy, is not to be cringe. So one of the possible reasons for them to do this is to not put themselves out there and to not put anything out there that people can criticize. It's almost like, like some primates, you don't bare your teeth because they'll bring out aggression. It's like, how far have we really come? You see, like, this is my profile picture. Like it's like a photo from a Civil War battlefield. We've got to put ourselves, we've all been given something. And I'll let Gen Z figure out how they're going to show up in the social media space. But when it comes to what we've been given, I was thinking, my goodness, we've all been given a smile. We've all been given a light. We've all been given something unique with your quirks, your personality, your skills, your passions. If we don't put them out there, it's disobedience. Don't bury what God has given you. Continues, verse 24. Then he said to those standing by, take his mina away from him and give it to the one who has 10 minas. Sir, they said, he already has 10. He replied, I tell you that everyone who has, more will be given. But as for the one who has nothing, even what they have will be taken away. But those enemies of mine who did not want me to be king over them, bring them here and kill them in front of me. Happy Sunday, everybody. So the king returns, is point 3. And he rewards with faithfulness everyone with greater responsibility. So one way, one of those pastors that came through gave me this amazing way to tell if you're growing. I want to pass this wisdom on that has been given, one of the good ones. Christine Kane says, I love her stuff. She says, a good way to tell that you're growing is if you look at what you're doing now, what you're facing right now, and you think, it's too big for me. But then if you look back at what you were doing maybe 6 months ago or 2 years ago, and you think, oh, those were the good old days. I'd exchange today's problems for the ones I was facing back in 2005. Remember 2005? Oh, those were the days. What that is, it's a sign that you're growing and you're able to, you're trusted with more. Here, he confronts this fear. This master confronts the fear, not the results, It was the fear. He said, I gave you something, and you were scared, and you hid it. There was this wonderful, wonderful counselor Marie and I used to meet with as often as we could in Texas. His name is Rick Reynolds. And Rick Reynolds loved to do like a ropes course. You know the ropes training courses where they put a harness on you and a goofy looking helmet? On a ropes course, there's a thing called the pamper pole. And you climb up it. You're so mature. You didn't even snicker when I said Pampers. You climb up this pole, and then you have to stand on top of it. And then, if you're really good, you jump and catch like a trapeze thing. And you're harnessed up and everything, but from what I've told, you've done this in missions training, just standing up on this small thing is why they call it a pamper pole. And one day, Rick was in his truck, and God said, at the next rope course, and he almost had this conversation with God. God said, hey, the next time you do a ropes course, would you do a pamper pole for me? Rick's driving his truck down Palmer, and he goes, yeah, God, I'd do a pamper pole for you, of course. And then God said, would you jump off the pole and catch the trapeze? And Rick's like, yeah. Jump off, I do that all, it's kind of fun. I like the little adrenaline rush, I do it. God said, would you do a pamper pole and close your eyes and jump off and try to grab the trapeze? And Rick's like, that's a cool trick, I've never tried that one before. Yes, God, I would do that. And God said, would you climb up a pamper pole and turn around and then close your eyes and jump this way and try to grab it? And Rick's like, well, what? I don't know if I could do that because I might miss. And that was the moment. God said, your job is to jump. I'm in control of whether you succeed or not. I'm in control. I'll handle you whether you grab the pole and get it. I'll handle it if a burst of wind comes out and puts the pole away from you and you plummet and the harness has to save you. Our job is to jump. Our job is to put it out there. You've got something in your hands. What will the king find in your hands when he returns? So I've got a challenge for us, calling it the 1 mina move. Here's how it works. Name one of these things that God, just pick one. Pick an easy one. Pick a low-hanging fruit. Name 1 mina that God has entrusted to you and take one concrete step within the next 48 hours. So maybe one mina. Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's 1 mina of your time. Maybe it's a gift God's given you, an opportunity. And in the next 48 hours, you could send a message to someone. You could serve someone, especially in secret. You could invest time in prayer. That's a mina that you're saying, God, I'll give, it's just me and you in this room. I'll give this to you. Maybe it's giving generously to somebody or volunteering. Maybe it's signing up to volunteer somewhere. And then share with somebody what you did for accountability, but also it might inspire them. And of course, not in a bragging way, but just, hey, here's what I did. And invite someone in to the process with you. I love this quote from an early church father, Origen. He said, what we offer to God returns multiplied to us. Reminds me, I knew this guy, Brother Larry Johnson. He used to cry, say, you can't outgive God, Brother Mike. He'd cry. But what we return, when we give something up, no matter what, resources, time, ourselves, even putting ourselves out there when we might be criticized or we might be canceled. Oh no! We can never outgive God. My experience, when we lay down something in order to pursue God, we get something so much better back. When I was a teenager, I used to try to calculate. Like, all right, so if I'm gonna follow Jesus, in my mind, that equated to if I'm never gonna have any more fun again, like how can I stretch out my fun to the last possible moment and then cry, do-over! God save me. I wanted to have my cake and eat it too. But the older I get, the more I realize the stuff we can do is massive. We have a very large sandbox to play in. Christianity and following Jesus has so much more that we do instead of a little few things that are bad for us that we don't do. My math was all wrong as a teenager. I thought, here's the stuff we can't do, and here's the fun we can have. But it was actually reversed. God's given you a life. God's given you something. And like we were singing, when we look at it through our own eyes, other people's gifts, other people's talents always look better, especially if they're public, especially if they're experiencing success, right? If I were only like that person, then God could use me. If I could only sing like that, then God could use me. We have these conversations in our heads and say, this is all I've got. And I want to ask that you would ask God to say, to give you like a glimpse of how God sees what you've got. It's not like, that's all they have? What if God is like, I can work with that? We serve a God that works with loaves and fishes. He says, I can work with that. We serve a God that conceives of a universe when there is none there and says, let there be light. Nothing? I can work with that. Light. We serve a God that brings the dead back to life. And we're all invited to follow him.